After a person dies, where do they go? To heaven? Or fall into hell? Does the soul truly exist? Back in 1907, in the United States, a doctor named Duncan McDougall conducted a rather outrageous experiment just to prove that the soul was real and that it had weight. He attached an ultra-sensitive scale to a hospital bed, invited patients who were close to death to lie down, and monitored any change in weight at the precise moment of their passing. The experiment already sounds ethically questionable. But what's more bizarre is the result he reported. The first subject was a man dying of severe tuberculosis. After nearly 3 hours of struggling, he finally passed away. And in that exact moment, the needle on the scale dropped. The weight decreased by 21.26 grams. That became the origin of a now famous belief. The human soul weighs 21 grams. Duncan went on to test 5 more patients, but unfortunately, since he couldn't pinpoint the exact moment of death, the rest of the data was considered unreliable. Eventually, the experiment was deemed a failure. Still, it caused a stir in the public. Major newspapers like the New York Times ran front-page stories. The idea of measuring the soul fascinated the world. Then, in 2017, a science article published on the site SoftPDI seemed to pour cold water over those who believed in such a thing. It argued, even if the soul does exist after death, it's not what we imagine as a ghostly figure. Because the soul is immaterial, even if it had limbs, its feet couldn't generate friction with the ground. It wouldn't reflect light, since it lacks atoms, meaning no one would ever see it. Furthermore, the soul has no mass, no inertia, no physical properties that belong to the living, which means it couldn't interact with objects and it couldn't produce sound. But even with all that analysis, none of it is confirmed science. It's still just speculation. So, if the soul doesn't exist, then what happens to us after we die? When you die, every cell in your body begins to suffocate. Lacking oxygen, your muscle fibers lose the ability to contract. Energy runs out. The production of ATP, the molecular fuel of life, ceases completely. Even your nervous system shuts down. And soon after, all signs of life vanish. Your body is then placed into a cremation chamber, where the temperature can reach up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. At this point, the water in your body turns to steam. Elements like hydrogen, sulfur, and nitrogen separate from your proteins and fats and escape as vapor or oxide gases. The remaining organic compounds, like proteins, are broken down into carbon black, which then reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, CO2. Scientists estimate that the average cremation of one adult releases about 45 kilograms of CO2 into the atmosphere. And what's left? Only a small amount of ashes, composed of mineral traces and crystalline remains from your bones, along with phosphates and calcium salts. That small gray urn is the last tangible piece your family will ever hold of you. For many people, this is where death ends. But in truth, the story doesn't stop here. Whether your ashes are buried deep in the ground or scattered into the sea, they eventually become nutrients, absorbed by microbes, plants, or animals. They'll take what remains of your minerals to build a part of their own bodies. Still, that's only a tiny portion, because most of what made you, your carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, was released into the air as water vapor or CO2. It floats through the atmosphere, condenses into rain, falls onto forests, fields, and oceans, and from there, it gets absorbed by trees, converted into oxygen or nitrogen, and returns to the cycle of life. In other words, the blood that once flowed in your veins, the air you once breathed, might now belong to countless other living things. Which means, Whether you're alive or dead, maybe that's not what matters most. What matters is that you once felt, once loved, once existed. Matter isn't eternal, but you, in some mysterious way, are always present. Some people believe death is the end of all things. Others believe it's just a doorway. Science tells us what happens to the body, but what happens to consciousness? This is where the mystery deepens. When someone dies, their brain waves stop. But in rare cases, scientists have detected a brief surge of neural activity, just moments after the heart stops. Almost like a flash of consciousness, one last flicker before complete darkness. Some researchers speculate this could explain the vivid visions reported by people who've had near-death experiences. Tunnels of light, floating above one's body, seeing loved ones who've already passed. Of course, skeptics argue these are just the brain's final sparks, hallucinations triggered by a lack of oxygen. And maybe they're right. But others ask, if the mind is only a byproduct of the brain, why do some near-death experiences reveal things the person couldn't have possibly seen, like what was happening in another room or what the doctor said, even after the patient was clinically dead? These accounts remain unexplained, and so science and mystery continue to circle each other, one searching for proof, the other whispering something deeper. But while we may not know for certain where we go after death, we do know this: every part of you came from somewhere. The carbon in your bones was forged in the heart of stars. Your atoms have been part of countless stories before they ever became you. And when your life ends, those same atoms won't disappear. They'll scatter, merge, become parts of clouds, trees, oceans, and other lives yet to come. You may no longer have a name. You may no longer be you. But the universe never wastes a thing. Everything becomes something else. And perhaps in this grand cycle, that's a kind of immortality, not in the way religions describe, not in the way we imagine ghosts or souls, but in the way water becomes clouds and clouds become rain. And every now and then, somewhere in the world, a mother will look at her newborn child and feel a strange sense of familiarity. Not proof, just a quiet intuition that we are all part of something much older, much larger, and far more beautiful than we can ever explain. So maybe death isn't the opposite of life. Maybe it's just part of it. And when your time comes, you won't be erased. You'll be returned to the soil, to the sky, to the wind that moves across oceans. And someone, somewhere, might breathe a little deeper because a part of you became part of everything. So if you're still wondering where we go after we die, maybe the answer isn't out there. Maybe it's already within us, in the atoms that once lived 1,000 lives, in the breath that carries stories older than time. You don't have to believe in heaven or ghosts to know that your existence matters, because even after you're gone, the universe remembers, not through monuments or fame, but through the quiet echo of kindness, through the lives you touched, through the love you gave. So live fully, love without holding back. And when your time comes, know that you won't be forgotten. You'll become part of the rain, part of the forest, part of someone else's sky. Because maybe the soul doesn't need a destination. Maybe it just needs to be felt and remembered. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being part of this story.